Welcome along to a special edition of the Punter as we take a look forward to the 39th renewal of the Ryder Cup. The biennial clash between the Europeans and the Americans gets underway in the suburbs of Chicago at Medina Golf Course on Friday, and I'm pleased to say in the studio to preview the action for us, Gordon Watson and Angus Loughran are here. Gordon, how excited are you ahead of the clash in Chicago?
Oh, I just can't wait. Just get it on. It's just one of them from start to finish. It's just pure Ryder Cup. The rest of the world just goes pear-shaped. It's just totally golf all the way.
From a betting point of view, Angus, is this the big week for golf? Is it bigger than the Open Championships? Is it bigger than the Masters? How do you see it?
No, I wouldn't say it's bigger than the Masters or the Open Championship, but it's different. It probably generates as much interest and the colossal action from the moment it starts. What has changed significantly is the outstanding coverage that Sky give it, and the fact that most bookmakers now do bet in running, shot by shot, whereas in the past they've often closed their books. And what can be a problem is that you don't get much time between the four balls and the foursomes when they change for people to brace up. But certainly from an interest point of view, it's up there with the major championships. No doubt about that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about the fact that it's probably one of the best to trade as well, because we've got Europe versus the Americans, and the prices fluctuate all the time, don't they?
Exactly. I mean, if you've got like 2 or 3 boys out there on the course that are in front, people overreact in golf because it's nearly shot for shot. So you can see that if he doesn't birdie the par 5, he loses a shot to the field, normally in an Open. But again, that might just be enough to half the hole, and that's what people have got to remember. But there is so much trading available.
I'm going to say, you're a trader, Angus.
I can be, yeah. I mean, certainly, you know, I actually think the foursomes rather than the four balls is more interesting. A victory in a four ball is worth a lot more than a whole victory in a four ball is worth a lot more than a whole victory in a foursome. I think in foursomes you'll see that the matches are changing all the time. And yes, it's a tremendous trading opportunity. I'd rather take the free bet rather than trade it to make it, just win straight. So there's still a punting element to it, but without doubt, yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity.
Let's take a look at how Team USA line up and, in fact, their major wins. And as we know, when it comes to the Americans, there are more players that have indeed won a Grand Slam tournament, Flash.
Yeah, and not most of them all in America as well, and not just on there. There's 7 major winners. There's also Matt Kuchar, who won the 5th major this year at the Players, and obviously Brandt Snedeker, who's just won the Tour Championship and $10 million. So, I mean, they are bang on form, and we're going to have to play unbelievably well to get anything out of it.
How significant is it that they've got more major winners than us? Is that a big plus?
Especially at home. Yeah, I mean, they've all won in their home country. So for me, especially this week, sometimes when you look at the likes of McDowell, he's won on courses where par is for the course of over 4 rounds. But it won't be like that here. This is a conventional par 72, 4 par 5s. The rough's down. So we call it fetch it golf. They hit it as far and as hard as they can, and then they deal with it when they get there.
Angus, we've just got the 3 major winners.
Yeah, 2 of them won in America. Well, 2 of them won US Opens are called. US Open and USPGA, McDowell and Kamer. And Paul Lawrie, you've got to go back a long time since he won. But I mean, a lot of them will feel that there's a lot to look at. When you analyse it, the Americans will know that these guys can play, and Luke Donald and Lee Westwood. I don't think that the fact that they haven't won majors actually comes into it, because they'll be good competitors. And Punter in Ryder Cup golf is exceptional, and Sergio, well, I mean, particularly in foursomes, he's got this amazing record in foursomes, 9 wins in 10 games. It's unbelievable. So you've got to respect the European players.
Of course, when it comes to the Americans, most of the public will be looking at Tiger Woods and thinking, will he have a good Ryder Cup? But we know in the past he's not performed to his best of abilities when he was world #1, so now he's just a little bit off what he used to be. Flash, does that mean that he's going to perform even worse, do you think?
No, I think he'll be spot on. I mean, his record round Medina in particular, he won 1999 PGA, he won again in 2006 when it was at Medina, and he loves par 72, 4 par 5s. With the rough down as well, he can really open his shoulders. But I also think that he's matured. I think that he will now look that he's maybe a father figure to others, and instead of him being a solitary golfer, I think he's going to be a team man.
What are your thoughts, Angus, on Tiger Woods? Because for a long time people said he couldn't play team golf.
It's one of the most unbelievable stats in golf that Tiger Woods has lost more matches in Ryder Cup golf than won. If people asked him to, the win percentage ratio is incredible. Yeah, he should have stormed away with it. Maybe I think this year it might be his day. There's no one who's had the maximum in this format. 5 points never been achieved when it's been 5 points to be got. He'll be hungry, and he's played. As Flash said, these are the courses set up like they are. I think there's two significant points. The par 72 is one obvious one, but the lack of rough, it will definitely help him, and it'll help Dustin Johnson as well.
Do you think Woods has changed over the years, because he was not really associated with being a team golfer, but do you think he's become a team golfer? He played well at the President's Cup, didn't he, last time?
Yeah, he was really fired up for that. I think he's changed really since his life became public to what it was, and he's almost had to reinvent himself, and there's still that next major championship that's really burning in his desire. I mean, we've seen the best and the worst of Tiger this year. One thing that's been significant is how he's not competed on the Sundays in the majors. That's been almost frightening. He used to be the man who, if he was in front, he'd dominate. But then we've seen him win good tournaments that he likes. We saw the magic that, particularly at Muirfield Village when he won the Memorial. We saw a tremendous performance just before the Masters when he won Bay Hill. We've seen some good parts from Tiger, but really when you looked at the US Open, normally you'd have thought that was all over when he hit the front, and he didn't do it over the weekend. He had big chances in the majors and really didn't produce.
No, he's not taking his chances when it comes to the majors this year, that's for sure, though. He has won 3 times on the PGA Tour. Let's get some prices, shall we, for the 39th Ryder Cup. Let's hear from the bet butler, Nigel Seeley, for the first time.
Yeah, good afternoon, guys. I'm excited as you guys. I can't wait for the tournament to start. Angus was saying there about the size of the bets, and there's not as much betting activity as the Open or the Masters. The difference in this competition is the size of bets. The average size bet is huge. This is where the big hitters come out. The man in the street isn't really interested in the likes of 4 to 6 for USA or 6 to 4 Europe, but the big hitter really comes out. The average size bet will be a couple of £100, £300. It's a great market for bookmakers. One telephone call will be someone having £600 on Americans at 4 to 6. The next telephone call will be someone having £600 in Europe at 6 to 4. Fantastic business you're going to see, which means that they want the tie. The tie is a big runner here. It's 10 to 1. It's a big runner. At some stage, I think that will trade shorter. And at the bookmakers, they just know they're going to go quids in if this is a tie. And what a good position to be in. The Americans head the market, obviously favourites. You look at the stats, you look at all the key players. They've won more majors. We shouldn't even turn up, should we? We know we're going to lose. I tell you what, you look at the stats in this competition. Forget the majors when they're playing for themselves. As a team, the Europeans are head and shoulders above everybody. On first glance, you would turn around and say USA at 4 to 6 looks a shoo-in. But when you look into it, delve a little bit closer, look into those stats, the Europeans at 6 to 4 make great appeal. This is going to be a close game, though. Both times, I think, will trade shorter than where they currently are. I think you're going to get value in running. I think you hold your bets and see how it goes at the crucial stages. But the tie at 10 to 1, that's what the bookies want. And if you take the 10 to 1 now, I think at some stage you can get out at least 5 to 1.
Those prices as it stands at the moment about right for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think 4 to 6 great value. They were 8 to 11. You probably can get a little bit of 4 to 5 on the exchanges, but for me it's America all the way. I just think that the way that the course is set up, the players they've got actually going into this on form, and I don't think there's going to be a lot until you get to the greens, and this is where I worry about the likes of the Westwood, Colsaerts. Colsaerts is one of them. He is a fetch it golfer. Go hit it as far as you can, find out where it is. I really worry about the putting, but the Americans have got about 7 or 8 proper top-class putters.
Yeah, lots has been made about the fact that when it comes to those PGA Tour putting stats, there's an awful lot of the American team ranking very highly, and if Davis Love sets it up to be very, very quick on the stint meter, which apparently he will do, then he will favour the Americans. Did you go along with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to come down to the foursomes, because I think in the four balls the Americans are going to be too strong. But in the foursomes, I fancy Europe all the way in the foursomes. I just think that they play more foursomes golf than the Americans. I think that the camaraderie will suit them. And I think that if they can hold their own in the foursomes and get something out of the four balls, I mean, then they've got, realistically, we say it every time, they've got to have a lead going into the singles. I think they've got to have a decisive lead. I look at the singles and I see a few weak links. I see America winning the singles, and I think they're a shoo-in to win the singles. But I don't see it being one-way traffic before that. And, that's why it's a good trading bet. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Europe go favourites at some stage. I think they're going to make a good start. And it's the foursomes where I'd want to be with Europe.
Let's get some more odds, shall we, from the bottle, and we can get to lift the trophy prices.
Yeah, I mean, great points for the guys to make it there. But Angus, how many times we've heard that the Europeans are going to get hammered in the singles before? If you look at the world stats, it goes out the window in this competition. Really, really does. Lots to play for. Anyway, this is to lift the trophy. This is obviously ruling out the tie. If there's no tie factor here, so USA are the favourites at 4-6 and Europe 11-10. And obviously, if it's a draw, it's a tie. Europe retain the trophy. So Europe at 11-10. This just takes out the tie factor here. I mean, but I think personally, I just think you want to look at this game. This would be for the more of the big hitters. We'll come on for the guys betting in the 5s and 10s. The markets you might be interested in a bit later on. But if you're sitting at home and you've got a few quid and you want to have a decent bet and have an interest for the whole of the competition, this is where you want to go. USA 4-6, Europe 11-10. But those prices, as Angus is saying there, and Flash and the boys will change all the way through in running. So I would say just hold on to your bets and watch the first few holes and see who's really, really playing well. And look at the course and see how it's playing and then make a decision.
It's interesting when you hear from pundits and you read so many things about the Ryder Cup, Angus, is that, you know, you do get 50% saying Europe, 50% saying America. A lot of pundits saying it's too close to call. So when you look at those prices, for me, I just start to edge towards Europe simply on the odds.
Yeah, Europe are the value. And, I mean, you know, the 6 full day, they've been pushing them out. As Nigel said, you know, when we're talking about volume of turnover, in the Ryder Cup, there may not necessarily be the same number of bets, but they are much bigger bets. And there are some lumpy punters. People say, oh, there's no interest. Well, anything that's covered, like, I mean, Sky are throwing everything at this. And it's, you know, the coverage is literally, there won't be anything that we'll miss. And when it's on the TV, people want to bet on it. And the number of markets now in the Ryder Cup compared with what they were, I mean, I remember 85 Ryder Cup really very well indeed, when I think European golf changed forever as a result of that win with Sam Torrance's part. It was great, but literally there was nothing once the tournament started. You could have a bet before, and it was quite low-key, but since then it's really exploded.
Yeah, and there's lots of speciality markets that we are going to tackle, so stay with us as we take a look forward to the 39th Ryder Cup matches in Chicago.
Find out.
Welcome back to this special edition of the Punter as we take a look forward to the 39th Ryder Cup between Europe and the USA. Plenty of speciality markets when it comes to the Ryder Cup, and I'm pleased to say that Gordon Watson and Angus Loughran are going to take a look at one or two of the speciality markets that we've got here, and there are loads. There's no doubt about that. I mean, sometimes punters' Flash can be overwhelmed with the amount of speciality markets. You've got to sift through them to find out where the best value is.
Yeah, and it's just a bit of fun, really. Well, like, you get your hole-in-ones and you get like who's going to be top scorers, but the main one is always going to be when you have the little blocks of foursomes, 4 balls over the 4 sessions on Friday and Saturday, and then the singles at the end of Sunday.
Is this where odds compilers can make mistakes because they're trying to outdo each other and trying to do so many different markets? Can there be more value in these particular markets?
I mean, as you know, Dan, homework, if you do your homework, you can end up on the right side of it. And when we found that little nugget out, doing our homework, we've discussed it privately, but we might as well share it about the foursomes and Garcia. Now, Garcia will be 5-6 or 4-5 to win his foursomes match, but the odds suggest he should be a 2-on chance. Whoever he's playing with, you know, we're looking at a good 2-on chance as well. You'd like to be with him. He's won 9 out of 10, and you know, like, but yet it won't be. They won't have time to even factor that in. And Tiger, when do you see Tiger in a match bet being the price he'll be? Unless he, you know, it depends how the draw comes out. But more likely than not, he won't be. He'll be a much better price than you think.
Let's hear from Nigel Seeley, the bet butler, for the first time. We're going to take a look at the winning margin prices first of all. We'll get some opinion from Flash and Angus in a second. But Nigel, first of all, how do we price these up?
I think you're into 2 categories. Who you fancy is the first thing you're going to do. If you fancy Europe or fancy American, I think if you fancy the Americans, I think the chances are they could win it by a big score. And if you fancy Europe, I think it's going to be quite tight. So that's the way I would play this market. If you look at the stats on the market, the last 6 Ryder Cups, 2 of them have been won by just 1 point. The last 3, 14.5, 13.5. So 1 to 2 points, 13 to 8. But that really means if you really fancy a tight Ryder Cup and perhaps a European victory. If you fancy American victory, then you've got to go for this kind of market, the 5 to 6, 3 to 4, those kind of markets here. But the favourite's making it tight, 1 to 2, 13 to 8. But I think that's if you fancy Europe. So I think if Europe win it, there's going to be a tight one. But if the Americans win it, I think it could be quite embarrassing.
Flash, where are you going for when it comes to winning margin?
5-6, America. I've already laid my colours to the mast. 17-11 I've gone for. And I get a little bit worried about on the final day, if they only need a few points, they get them early, and then they end up shaking hands on 12, 13, 14.
This can be the problem, can't it, sometimes?
And then all of a sudden, a 7-point gap becomes a 3-point gap because they've already won the trophy.
Where do you see the winning margin price?
I think it'd be much closer, and I mean, I think that 13-8 that would definitely interest me, because I can see it going both ways. I mean, I can see Europe having, even if Europe have a good lead going into the last day, that's when the singles could really kick in against them. But you know, Chicago, it's going to be a bear pit there for the.
So how much is a factor is home galleries?
Massive. I mean, I've been to these Ryder Cups in America, and I mean, you know, each individual one of them was different. I mean, the hostilities reached their peak at Brookline in '99. I mean, you really knew on the Sunday there that there was going to be some heavy-duty drama with the crowd. They were at the most raucous there. I mean, we had Kiwa Island again. That was another very, very hostile experience for the European golfers, something they hadn't seen. It was much less. In '87, I mean, the first time I went to America to watch the Ryder Cup was '87 in Muirfield Village, when Europe won, when Olazabal made his debut and was instrumental in that great partnership that he built through the years with Seve. It was okay there. I mean, there were actually probably more European golf fans there than there were Americans. But since when they start to get beat, they suddenly took an interest, and in a way, you know, like I think it's very important for the home team in the Ryder Cup to win, but it'd be close. Europe, I don't think if they had to look to Glen Eagles in 2 years' time as fighting it back would worry, but you don't really want a thrashing either way. You want a good contest, and that's what's made it such a special tournament.
Yeah, and I'd look at a couple of the European boys like McIlroy and Punter in particular. They may have a putt to half, miss it, and it'll be like Wembley and England have just scored a goal. They will cheer mistakes. They're not like the British public or the European,
especially Chicago. I mean, Chicago's a big, raucous sporting city. It's
probably the #1 sporting town in the whole of America. It's just completely sport crazy. And they're all coming out for this.
Yeah, Flash, you like the Americans to win pretty handsomely. Yeah. So who do you think on that American team is going to be the top point scorer for Davis Love's side?
I think that you've got to look for someone who's going to be playing in 5 matches straight away. So that brings in Woods, Stricker, I think Matt Kuchar. So I would probably go for them 3, because I expect it to be a tied winner anyway, on around 4.5 points.
Yeah, it was last time, wasn't it, with Woods and Stricker getting 3.5 for the Americans. Who do you like for top American point scorer?
Well, actually, I like Dustin Johnson and I like Snedeker. I mean, because I think Snedeker is going to be used now, and I think that his putting is going to be absolutely key. He putted unbelievably last week. I know, you know, it's a big ask following the heroics, but I think he'll have a big week, and I think Dustin Johnson as well. So those would be my 2 against the field.
Let's hear from Nigel Seeley, the bet buller. Let's get some prices, shall we, when it comes to the top point scorer for the Americans?
Yeah, we're going to start on the top end of the market. Obviously, in Tiger Woods is top of that list at 5-1. He's one favourite that bookies want to take on. We've seen his record. He's lost more games than he's won, but yet he's the favourite because he's Tiger Woods. I mean, he was starting his tournaments about 2-1, 3-1 in Ryder Cups 4, 5-1 now. That is a price that some Tiger Woods fans might take it. His Ryder Cup form is abysmal, as we've seen. Well, not abysmal, but it's not great. But he's won this major here twice at this course. So that's the conundrum you've got if you can take Tiger Woods. Steve Stricker 8-1. Flash has made a case for him. He's got a semi-decent Ryder Cup record, but all the Americans, their Ryder Cup form isn't as good as the Europeans. Obviously, we've had the better over the last few years. Dustin Johnson, Angus's tip there, 9-1. Only won 1 game in 4, though. 1 match in 4. Hasn't got a great record, but the course does suit him. I like Kuchar as well with Flash. I think 10-1. His putting is exceptional. He did very well at Central World Match Play. His match play golf form is pretty good. He's the up-and-coming one. Furyk 12-1, obviously renowned for his putting ability. On the flip side, we've got the next list up where the guys who've got the bigger prices. Here's Snedeker, 11-1. You can see 12-11. That means the bookies have cut him. He was 14. I think Angus has nipped out during the break and had a few quid on it because they've gone 14-1 into 11-1. He's the man for the money. He won't be 11-1 come start. The Angus Loughran's on. The Shrewdies are on. They're on. He's in form. The punters are in form. Snedeker, 11-1, will play a big part here. And I think you want to go with a rookie, because I really do. Bring in the rookies, Bradley and Duff, the 10-12. Bubba Watson, 10-1, probably be the man supported by all the galleries in Chicago. But I agree with both of them, but for 2 different people. I think Kuchar and this man Snedeker. Snedeker is going to be the most backed person in the next 24 hours because he will play a major part in this Ryder Cup.
Flash.
Yeah, again, I think there you look at Woods at 5-1, Stricker at 8s. They will be partnered up on both days, and then obviously the singles go without saying. So I think if you fancy Woods, you've got to go for Stricker at 8s instead of Woods because yeah, and exactly, it's bigger price, better value. But the one thing I would say, and I didn't really mention in there, was Keegan Bradley. He's #1 in overall stats across the board. So again, I see him 10 or 12-1 there. You've got to keep an eye out for him.
Let's get some thoughts on the top European. Who do you like, Flash, first of all?
For me, it's a two-horse race between Donald and Rowe.
So do you back them both?
Yes, you definitely do.
Angus?
Well, I mean, I think you look at the Irish. I mean, I think McIlroy and McDowell will play together. I think Graham McDowell's an interesting one. We saw that he had plenty of bottle when he held the winning putt last time. I fancy him to win his singles, whoever he plays. And so, again, if you fancy McIlroy, I think they'll play together. And I think you never know. It's the interesting thing about Sergio, I was mentioning, is it's really the foursomes that we want to get stuck into him. His record in the singles isn't great, just a 1 point out of 5. And it's 50% in 4 balls, but it's that foursomes. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into him in the foursomes.
Let's hear from Nigel. Let's get the prices, shall we, when it comes to top European point scorer?
Very, very competitive market, this one. I mean, McIlroy 5-1, Donald 11-2, head the betting. McIlroy, obviously, the man they've targeted as the man to get to the Americans' targeted to derail the European effort here. Donald 11-2. His record in Ryder Cup is exceptional. 11 games, 8 wins, 1 loss and 2 halves. Fantastic record. 8 wins out of 11. He's the man in form. He's Flash's tip 11-2. Poulter 7-1. Will he play enough games? That's my question. I'm not so sure. Westwood 15-2. McDowell 8. Justin Rose, another one with exceptional record. 4 Ryder Cup games, 3 wins. Percentage-wise, these are the 2 in form, Donald and Rose. On the flip side, we go to the next one. The other runners and riders in the race, the big prices. Garcia 8-1. We know what Angus has told us when we have to be backing him. We have to count him out the singles, but his record here is good. 2nd and 3rd in major competitions at this course. Kamer 16-1. Now you're coming down to the bit part players. I don't think these boys will play enough games, and that is why these are prices they are. 16-16. Molinari didn't win a game in his Ryder Cup debut. Played 3 matches, didn't win one. Paul Lawrie 20-1, not for me under pressure. Hansen 20-1. So it's definitely going to be on the first page, not like the Americans. I think this market is really about, it's 5-1 the field, but realistically, there's probably only about 5 or 6 runners who can win it, which means it could be value. It may be worth backing 2 or 3 at sort of 6, 7, 8-1 and backing around about an even money shot that you get that winner. I think that could be the value to play here.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, you might like someone like Colsaert, or indeed Peter Hansen, or Paul Lawrie for that matter, because they've all won on the European Tour this season. But as the Butler's just said there, you can't possibly back them to be top point scorers. They're just not going to play enough, are they?
Well, no, I mean, especially someone like Lawrie, who said he didn't like playing in America too much. I mean, you know, that wasn't a great way. Missed the US Open. I mean, in fairness, he's playing very well, Paul Lawrie. So, I mean, you know, I wouldn't say that a singles win's beyond him. But how many of those matches do you think he's going to play in before the singles? Not many.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Top debutant we can talk about, and maybe we can get excited about Nicholas Colsaert. I don't know. Obviously, he's the only rookie on the European side. The Americans have got 4. So of the 5 players making their debut, Flash, who do you like?
Bradley.
Keegan Bradley for you.
Definitely.
I mean, he's a dead-eye putter, isn't he? And there's a suspicion he could play with Phil Mickelson as well.
Yeah, he's got everything. This is the other thing you've got to remember about the Americans. Yes, they've got 4 rookies going into this tournament, but 2 of them are major winners. One of them is Snedeker, who's just won 10 million in the Tour Championship, and these are deadpan golfers. These are not blasé. You watch them and you wouldn't know if they've just birdied or bogeyed. They are straight down the line, and that's why they win majors. And for me, all the razzmatazz that's going on, it will not affect them one bit.
5 to choose from. Who do you like, Angus?
Well, I've got to go for Snedeker. If I'm going for him to be top scorer, I've got to be top rookie. You've got to go for him on that. And I think that it was been 4-1 this morning, and that's certainly been a price that excited me. I expect him to play. I don't expect Colsaert to play in every game. That's why I think you've got an immediate edge. I respect what you say about Keegan Bradley. I just don't think he's playing well enough at the moment. I mean, if he'd been playing good golf, I've watched his career very closely. It reached a crescendo, of course, at the expense of Jason Duffner in last year's USPGA after he'd put in a really good performance in Akron the week before. I just don't think that Bradley's playing well enough.
Let's check out the market. Butler?
Yeah, it's always a good way to be with Angus Loughran, I'll tell you, on this golf event. I'm going with Snedeker here. 4-1, he said's gone. 7-2's gone. 7-2 is the price. Now, that will go. This guy will start off 3-1. I think he might even go off joint favourite. Duffner 11-4 with Keegan Bradley. Not in 4. Webb Simpson 3-1. How on earth can Webb Simpson be a shorter price than Brad Snedeker? Absolutely ridiculous. I think the British public only remember Snedeker on the way he sort of collapsed in the Open Golf, and that's why they're not. He's not a familiar name, and also they wouldn't know how to spell his name out on the betting slip. That's why Simpson's probably a little bit easier. But for the shrewdies out there, Snedeker is the bet for me. Definitely 7-2. Great value. I'm convinced he's going to be more money for him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes off favourite for this market.
Are we over-egging this Brad Snedeker thing,
Well,
Angus?
no, not really. Well, you could be, but I think that, in fairness, I think there's 5 players there, and I think you look at there are reasons. I mean, the reasons I fancy Snedeker, he is in form, he's putting superbly, and I look at the others. Keegan Bradley, great golfer, course will suit. I don't think he's in great form at the moment. Duffner, don't think he's in great form at the moment. Webb Simpson had a great finish at the weekend, in fairness, but since the US Open, been very disappointing. And Nicholas Colsaerts, I don't think he's going to play enough golf. I mean, that's how I view it. So therefore, you know, it's a process of elimination. You're asking the question earlier, do you think that these speciality markets offer something? In this case, I do. And it's quite interesting that, you know, he's 7-2 now, but yet when they took a poll of who do you think will be the top rookie, 50% of the people think it'll be Snedeker, and yet you're getting 7-2 your money. That's surely got to be value.
And I have to defend Keegan Bradley because he's 11-4 and he's #1 in the world at all stats. So you say he's not playing well.
No,
he's at this moment in time. But again, you come Snedeker. I would never ever. If someone wins a major, it's always lay him the week after. And I'm just wondering if it might just be a blow up for him. I don't think he'll play as much as other people do. Neither.
Yeah, I think these two could argue for the rest of the show, can't we? But we've got to go just for now. We've got more speciality markets to preview. We're going to hear from Mark Hopley of golfalot.com as well. Don't go away. Hello and welcome back to this special edition of the Punter as we take a look forward to the Ryder Cup matches between Europe and the USA. And I'm pleased to say that Mark Hopley of golfalot.com is joining us via Skype for this section of the programme. Mark, a very good afternoon to you. How excited are you ahead of the 39th renewal of the Ryder Cup matches between Europe and the USA?
I'm very excited, actually. I think this could be one of the closest matches in quite a long time, actually.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because when we hear from pundits, everyone is suggesting this is going to be close. Too close to call, I keep hearing all the time. Yet, when it comes to the market makers, the odds compilers, the Americans are 4-6 favourites. Do you get why that is or not?
Not really, actually. I'd probably say Europe have got the stronger team on paper. And I think if it was a neutral venue, they would be the favourites. But they're probably going with the home advantage. And really, I feel that if Europe can keep the crowd quiet, they'll have a good shout. But if America get the crowd going, then that momentum could carry them on.
Martin, you say you think that Europe have got a stronger side on paper, and yet the Americans have got nearly double the major winners, and actually major winners this year. So how do they have a stronger team on paper?
I think there's a lot more experience in the team. I mean, if you're looking at the winning records in the Ryder Cup, there's no American that has a winning record, whereas, you know, there's about 6 or 7, I think, of the Europeans do. And you've got Donald and Punter and even Justin Rose right out there in over 70%, which is very high indeed. So it is going to be close. I mean, European players have been at the top of the world rankings more often than the Americans the last year or two. So I don't think it's unfair to say that it's, you know, they might be the stronger team.
It's probably fair as well, Mark, when you consider that, you know, a generation or so ago, the weaker players on the European Tour occasionally ranked outside of the top 100 in the world. Now it's very different. Even the players that just snuck into our team, they're highly ranked. We've got more strength in depth than maybe we used to have. Is that fair, Mark?
Yes, I'd probably say it's fair. And certainly if you go back to the 80s, you would definitely say that. However, you know, in that time, we did win a lot of Ryder Cups because the so-called lower-ranked players were inspired and played out their skin. So I'd say it's still pretty even. I mean, the guys who the American team for once is looking pretty strong, and I think they could have picked from another 5 or 6 guys, and it wouldn't have changed the team very much. So they've got a nice old blend of some old guys and some young guys. But I don't know. I just have a feeling that, you know, it might be Europe's day.
You mentioned the galleries in Chicago. That's sure to be a factor. What about the course setup at Medina? Surely Davis Lovey's going to set it up to favour the Americans. That's what all captains do, isn't it? Well,
it is, and you know, we've been good at that in the past as well. But there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not sure I favour one team or the other, really. I mean, you know, if they are going to make the rough down, then, you know, it would help people like Luke Donald, who's really, despite being #1, is not the world's straightest driver. And but it always really comes down to putting, and you know, who can hold the putts, who can make the shots, and I wouldn't say the course setup has too much influence.
Give us some players to follow when it comes to top point scorer for both sides. Which players do you think will be key? First of all, on the European side, Mark.
Well, we've been tipping this on the site. I think it'd be hard to look past either Luke Donald or Sergio Garcia for top point scorer for Europe. I mean, they've both got astounding records in the team part of the events of foursomes and the four balls. So we'd probably go with them.
And when it comes to the Americans?
Well, I actually think Tiger Woods. I mean, he has got a very good singles record, and he'll probably play at least 3 times, if not 4. The last time he was a top point scorer at Celtic Manor, and you know, he'll be right up there. I don't think there'll be many people past him.
Why do you think Tiger Woods hasn't got the best of Ryder Cup records in the past? We've been discussing it on the show already, and it was something of an anomaly, surely, years ago when he was world #1, winning every other week, and when it came to the Ryder Cup, he underperformed. Have you got any sort of theory about that?
Well, I don't have any particular theory on that. I mean, it's interesting that in some of these interviews he's done this year, he's alluded to the fact that he kind of felt he had to carry the team, and they were relying on him, despite the fact that, you know, he was the youngest in the team by a long way for the first few Ryder Cups. Whereas he's at the other end of things, you know, he's maybe the guy that people look up to. So maybe he kind of you know, gets it a bit more. He's got more people to support him, more people of his own age around.
Finally, before we let you go, Mark, give us a correct score. Then it sounds like you're going to go for a Europe win. What sort of score are you looking at?
Oh, I think it'll be within a point either way. Although, you know, to my best, I think, you know, 10 or 11 to 1 for the tie. We never had a tie in America, and if it's ever set up for a tie, then this would be the year. But if it is to remember Europe, I think it'd be very close, maybe a point.
Just a point, isn't it, Mark? Many thanks for joining us. That was Mark Hartley of golfalot.com. You see, Mark suggesting it's going to be close, Flash.
Again, everyone's entitled. I just think because they're not like the likes of Webb Simpson, Keegan Bradley, Jason Duffner, Brandt Snedeker, Matt Kuchar, because they're not household names, people don't realise how seriously good robotic golfers these boys are. They're not going to get involved other than hit fairways, hit greens, and they putt unbelievably well. And that's what Martin actually said. It's about once you get on the dance floor, you've got to put it in the hole.
Do you think, Angus, that the way that the FedEx Cup playoffs has helped the Americans recently? Because, you know, going back 15, 20 years when the FedEx playoffs weren't there, a lot of Americans, as soon as the PGA had finished, they'd packed up, hadn't they, pretty much? They weren't going to play any serious big events. And when it came to the Ryder Cup, maybe they just dipped form-wise. But because we'd have the playoffs and their focus is now on September golf, do you think it's helped the Americans recently?
Well, I'll tell you what, how relieved is Davis Love when you think about it? He could have picked Ricky Fowler. Easily, no one would have complained if he picked Ricky Fowler. He probably wouldn't have picked Snedeker.
No.
And then we'd have been in a position of the chap winning the 10 million on the weekend, not in the Ryder Cup. And that would have made the FedEx Cup look a bit of a joke, to be quite honest. So he's been lucky, but it goes the other way. He might have inspired Snedeker. He might have inspired his players to perform. And you have to say that he had a harder choice, I think, than Jose Maria. The only other player that had a case really was Padraig Harrington. And he hadn't done enough. He hadn't won enough. But you'd have liked him on your team. I mean, you would have liked a Harrington in your team. If I'd been a Ryder Cup captain, I'd have loved Harrington on my team. So he's maybe the unlucky one to have missed out.
Let's delve into one or two more specialty markets. We can hear from Nigel, Seeley and the Bet Butler once again. Looking forward to some of the first day's play. Nigel.
Yeah, this is who's going to win the morning session in the morning. And so, I mean, if you look at the stats of this one, the Europeans hold a great advantage. They're winning 4-2 in the last 6 Ryder Cups. They've held the lead. But the last 2 Ryder Cups, America have won the morning session. So here, USA favourite 6-5. There's never been a tie. There's never been 2-2 in the game, which is quite surprising for me. The tie 5-2. I think Europe are 15-8. They have to get off to a good start. They have to quiet that crowd. I think 15-8 Europe. I don't think there's really much correlation between these prices and the price to win it. I think it's very much closer than to win the event. So when you see 6-5 and 15-8 about something I think should be a pick and match, I think you've got to go to Europeans at 5-15. I think the stats suggest that as well. There's never been a tie. That's the surprising one. But despite never being a tie, the correct score 2-2 is again a 5-2 shot. So this is the correct score for the morning as well. So obviously there's 4 games being played. There could be 2-2, could be 3-1, etc., etc. So 2-2, 5-2 here, 3-1 USA, 130, 4-0. I think you're looking at around about 2.5, 3.5. These are prices without obviously that you can get the prices on application requests from the bookmakers with the halves. I think 2.5, 1.5 has been the most popular scoreline in this morning bit. But USA 4-0, 14-1, not going to happen. Draw 2-2. I'm going to go for Europe to win it, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 there, Europe at 9-2, or maybe even a 2.5, 1.5 at around about a similar price. But I think Europe at 15-8. Great bet, because I don't think it makes much difference on the prices to win the event and the morning four balls.
Angus.
Well, I think one thing we've got to mention straight away, and I take what Nigel said on board. It's a different format this year in the sense that, so historically, you want to really ignore what's happened in previous Ryder Cups in the morning. They're starting with the four balls. Now, the four balls is going to be stronger for America than Europe for me, for sure. So I would say Jose Maria Olazabal would be delighted with that 5-2, a tie after at 2-2. He'd take that every single time in no four ball. If they can get that, they've got a great chance in the Ryder Cup. Where I see the bet will come is when we talk about the afternoon and the foursomes.
Yeah, the foursomes generally flashes where the Europeans come through, simply because the Americans just don't play that type of golf at all, do they? Better ball golf.
No, they don't, but they seem to be a lot more cohesive than they have been before. I think the teamwork, because a lot of these boys play on tour with each other and they come from the same sort of areas, I think that they're really going to shock, and I think that I think they'll win in the morning in the four balls, and if you can get odds against, then I'd steam into that. But I would say that they're not going to be run over in the foursomes either.
Yeah, it's going to be tighter for both, potentially. Let's get some prices from the bet bullet when it comes to those foursomes in the afternoon. Nigel.
Yeah, if you go on about the foursomes here, I mean, the afternoon when there's no difference. You say about the prices, you say you want to be... There's absolutely no difference in prices. So this has got to be a bet again. You're at 15-8. I think the bookies are just looking at... All the bookmakers now have computer systems that they put in the outright winner, and it works out the probability of them to win a morning session, a correct score, all with the press of a button. There's no... The thought process comes out of it a little bit slightly in us compiling the days when me and Angus were doing it. But Europe here, 15-8. Got to be the bet for me. The tie 5-2 and USA 6-5. I don't think it'll be a tie. I think 5-2 the ties a lay all day long. I think it's too short. And when markets are too short in 3-runner races, it means it's value elsewhere. And the value is with Europe at 15-8. Absolutely certainty for me. On the correct scores of this again, I'm going the same way. I like the Europeans here, 2.5, 1.5, a monster 7-1. That's a massive price. Europe 3.5, half. I think we all want that, but I don't think it's going to happen. The draw. How can the draw be 2-2, 5-2, and Europe will 2.5, 1.5 at 7-1, or USA 2.5, 1.5 at 5-1. This draw 2-2 is the wrong price, and it's skewing the whole market.
I'll tell you what, I can't believe the price of Europe there. I think they're a knocking bet to win the fourth.
Well, yeah, well, we're all agreed there, but I mean, and that is a tremendous bet, because no matter how the score is at lunchtime, there shouldn't be odds against. But I would be Nigel saying the tie can't happen 2-2. It very much can, and it's very much. I think of interest to have a saver. If you back Europe at 15-8 and save your stake on the 5-2 with a tie, you know they've only got to win 2 of those foursome matches, or 1 and 2 halves to get the money. I think that's very fair.
I mean, we can sit here and talk about foursomes records and so on, and I like Europe because of what they've done. But there's no doubt that if the Americans do have a good full ball session in the morning, then the odds will change for the foursomes. There will be probably a shorter price if their players are in.
Yeah, again, I mean, I must agree. I mean, I think USA probably win 3-1 in the morning and maybe lose 2.5, 1.5 in the afternoon, 5-4 over the day. But that means that you may even get 2-1 about Europe in the afternoon. So there will be value. We expect America to come out bombing, and they will be bombing.
What is the difference between foursomes and four balls? Is it just the fact that the Americans do not play, or is it the fact that our players are more in tune? There's more natural partnerships maybe on our side. When you look at Garcia and Donald, they're good friends off the course. Likewise, Rose and Punter. I mean, can we imagine that these guys might play a bit of better ball in their spare time? I mean, what is it? Why are we so much better historically?
Well, I think it's what you've said you have to take on board. I mean, in Europe, a lot of these guys, particularly the Irish guy, I mean, McDowell and McIlroy will have been brought up, play a bit of foursomes golf, go out and play some foursomes. And they take it as a matter of course. They do play some foursomes. They make sure that they play. They'll know exactly who they're playing with. By the way, there'll have been some foursome practice that is hidden away from the media and the press, and one or two of the guys, the groups will have known. They'll be ready for it. The Americans, they're going to play their own ball, and that's what they're used to.
Yeah, and which usually means that they are very strong in the singles, and that's reflected in the prices. Of course, you can take prices right now about the Americans winning the last day singles. Let's hear from the bet butler once again when it comes to day 3 of the Ryder Cup. Nigel.
Yeah, obviously the Americans have a fantastic record of singles, and you see the prices here, 4 to 6, a lot shorter than what we were talking about earlier. Europe there, 8 to 5. I think you've got to be very careful here because depending on how many singles matches one of the teams might need to win, there could be a lot of them tied. So I would be very, very hold your bets and find out what the situation is going into the last round. I tell you what, here of all the markets we looked at today, I'll be very cautious about betting this market. The tie 7 to 1, no, not for me. Angus, with punters, they love the tie. They always look for theories in tie. Oh, in running it's going to be shorter. In running it's going to be shorter. We can trade out. People always back the ties in these last games and last games of major championships. Back the 2 balls of tie. I think the ties here. The bookies are cotton onto it. Years ago, you get much bigger prices on that, and then you were getting much bigger prices in the singles. But the tie for me is something that the bookies have realised is a bit of a there's no value in it anymore for me as a punter. 4 to 6 America. I would have to back the Americans at 4 to 6 because their record here is so strong. But I would just be very careful because we don't know what the situation is going into the last round. And if they need say 4 or 5 points, Europe could get 3 or 4. The rest of them could all be over, and then the rest would be tight. So I'd just be very careful having your bet on this market at this early stage.
I'm going to say, Flash, what Nigel's saying there is obviously fair, because if the Americans have got a big lead, or indeed the Europeans have got a big lead, then the psyche changes going into that last day singles, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. All of a sudden, you just play careful golf and you hit fairways and greens and you shake hands on, say, 12, 13 or 14. But I don't think the Chicago public are going to allow that.
No,
I think that they want this right down, and they want the biggest margin possible to sow a few seeds for when it comes back in 2 years' time.
Angus, thoughts on the singles?
Well, my theory is if Europe have a decent enough lead, then the 4 to 6 is an even better price.
Yeah. But if the Americans have a big lead, or just a lead...
If the Americans have a lead, I'm not so sure the 4 to 6 is a great price.
Yeah.
So it's one where I'd wait and see what happens on Saturday night.
I mean, do you think, very briefly, that 5 to 6 is going to be available Sunday morning or not? I mean, how do you see it going into that last day?
I think it all depends on the score in the match. I really do. And that's what you almost... It's like an anti-post bet. But basically, I would have said if you want to back America, take the 4 to 6 because I don't think it'll be there on I really don't think it'll be there on Sunday morning.
Angus, Flash, Nigel, thanks for now. One more section to come in our Ryder Cup preview. We'll be taking a look at more special bets and indeed Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods. Don't go away. Welcome back to a special edition of the Punter as we take a look forward to the Ryder Cup matches in the States. It is, of course, Europe versus the USA for the 39th renewal of the Ryder Cup. I'm pleased to say that Gordon Watson and Angus Loughran with me in the studio. Lots of special bets that we've been talking about. 1 or 2 novelty markets as well, but punters can get stuck into these if they like. What we're going to highlight here is hole-in-one. It must be tremendously difficult to get a hole-in-one in any event, or is it, Flash?
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, normally, but when you have, say, 150 players in a normal tournament, then it's a shoo-in. I know you normally see 1 at every single tournament, but when you think you've only got 24 guys playing maybe 3 rounds of golf, then I would say that it's very, very unlikely. But there is a couple of par 3s here where they will be going in 8 or 9 irons, so they will be going flag hunting. Yeah,
as Flash says, when it comes to the regular tournament, I think a hole-in-one's around about 4 to 7, 4 to 6 shots, something like that. This is different, though, Angus, but we have had holes-in-ones in Ryder Cups in the past.
We've had 6 in total, but I think what's interesting that we've had 2, and when we've had 1, we've had 2 at 2 of the Ryder Cups. At Oak Hill, Constantina Rocker and Howard Clark obliged, and then at the K Club, perhaps most famously Paul Casey with that wonderful shot. But people forget Scott Verplank also had a hole in one of that Ryder Cup, and I saw one myself at the Belfry when Sir Nick Faldo holed early on in his round. And now, but with the earliest Ryder Cup, must ask the butler, that actually took place in 1973 at Milford. Any relation, Peter Butler?
It was the year of my birthday. Actually, it was my uncle Pete. He was playing. I think he was playing with Brian Barnes against Jack Nicklaus and Tom Weisskopf, and in the foursomes. Yeah, but that's
Leave it out, Butler.
It was my uncle Pete. I remember. There's stories in the Butler house many years about that.
Yeah, and 3 holes from the finish of a key moment in the match at the 16th.
He's great, Butler.
Are we having that? Are we having that? We're not having that. What about the prices for a hole in one, Butler?
Well, I mean, Angus said it's been 6 hole-in-ones in 39 Ryder Cups. It's about a 6-to-1 shot. So no Ryder Cup 1 to 6. Probably a bit of value, I'd have thought. Yes, 7-2. I mean, it's about odds-on shot. As you can see from the up, I've still got the old Uncle Pete swing. I've still got Uncle Pete swing there. But no 1 to 6. On the maths, it probably is about a right price. Bookies don't give him much money in this market, but we need my Uncle Pete back to get one for us, boys.
Would you have a look at that at 7-2, or would you leave it alone?
Well,
You'd leave it alone.
I would probably leave it alone. I do remember at Oak Hill. I certainly didn't leave it alone at Oak Hill because I remember when Rocker had that. There'd been a big rain delay, and I was down behind the green at the time, and literally it was like the rain they've had in the northeast this week. It was flooded, but the drainage system was a lot better than maybe they had at Ripon Racecourse or what we've seen. But what you did see was in the delay when they were waiting for you to start. The balls were being thrown onto the green just to test their speed, and 6 of the first 10 went in the hole from the edge of the green. So we managed to get on the phone back home. And in those days, it proves how different it was. It was 50-1 a hole in one, and in the Ryder Cup, and we did get on.
And also the weather is. They say that the only rain they expect is actually tomorrow afternoon because that will soften up the greens, and that obviously makes a hole in ones a lot easier, especially with 8 or 9
They're
irons.
expecting a bit of mist. It might be a delayed start tomorrow, which obviously you don't want too many of. Because the last Ryder Cup, of course, was the only one that went into the Monday. But they've got a bit of time to make up. Daylight's a bit later there, and I think it should be all right.
Let's have a look at one or two of the novelty markets. Butler, what else you got for us?
Yeah, I quite like this one. This is a novelty market. The chant on the opening tee, the first chant you can hear on the opening tee, get in the hole, USA, all that kind of stuff. Get in the hole.
Certainty. The top one's an absolute certainty.
Well, get in the 4-1, get in the hole. I like that one. I thought that was it. I thought USA at 6. I thought the back the two of them, 4-1 and 6.
Is this the first one we hear?
I think, it's the first chart on the first tee. When they tee off, the first chart. So I think get in the hole, a great call. I think USA 6-1. But I was hoping that we could get on the phone to Chrissy Graham and get him to get on the phone giving it some boo or some mashed
but he's
potato.
not playing boo weekly. There's only 2 runners there. Get in the hole and USA.
How can mashed potato...
No, mashed potato's a runner. Don't worry about that.
I think they're all runners.
Yeah.
I think you could have a 4-way tie here because there'll be some people... you will have different chance. But if Tiger Woods tees off the first, and this is another thing people have got to remember... If you tee off the first, and it is Tiger, he gets to tee off on all the par 5s and the par 3s because of obviously the odds and the evens. And if he goes and tees off on the first, you will hear, "You're the man."
Let's take a look at the Sports Tonight special, shall we? Because this is a bet that Unibet have come up with for us. And the Butler's got details of this for us, I reckon. This is... Oh, in fact, no, we can see it here. It's a money-back special if either Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods finishes as top point scorer. Flash.
Well, it's a bet to nothing then, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean...
whoever you fancy, you've got them running for.
Exactly. And I would say that they are probably 2 of the best going into these 24 players.
We've not really talked about Rory McIlroy's top point scorer. Can you see him being top point scorer, Angus?
Absolutely, yeah. But I was just mentioning...
Because he did infamously call the Ryder Cup an exhibition match, didn't he?
Yeah, he has done that, yeah.
Before he played it.
Yeah, he could be, and he's #1 golfer in the world, so he's got to be, and he's playing, I mean, with the exception of the last round at the Tour Championship last weekend.
It'd be interesting, certainly. He's a fantastic player, Rory McIlroy, and from a European point of view, we hope he does well. Well, many thanks to Gordon Watson and to Angus Loughran and to the Bet Butler, Nigel Seeley. That's all we've got time for on this special edition of The Punter. We'll see you next time. #1, so now he's just a little bit off what he used to be, Flash. Does that mean that he's going to perform even worse, do you think?
No, I think he'll be spot on. I mean, his record round Medina in particular, he won 1999 PGA, he won again in 2006 when it was at Medina, and he loves par 72, 4 par 5s. With the rough down as well, he can really open his shoulders. But I also think that he's matured. I think that he will now look that he's maybe a father figure to others, and instead of him being a solitary golfer, I think he's going to be a team man.
What are your thoughts, Angus, on Tiger Woods? Because for a long time, people said he couldn't play team golf.
It's one of the most unbelievable stats in golf that Tiger Woods has lost more matches in Ryder Cup golf than won. If people asked him to, the win percentage ratio is incredible. Yeah, he should have stormed away with it. Maybe I think this year it might be his day. There's no one who's had the maximum in this format. 5 points never been achieved when it's been 5 points to be got. He'll be hungry, and he's played, as Flash said. These are the courses set up like they are. I think there's 2 significant points.
Welcome along to a special edition of the Punter as we take a look forward to the 39th renewal of the Ryder Cup. The biennial clash between the Europeans and the Americans gets underway in the suburbs of Chicago at Medina Golf Course on Friday, and I'm pleased to say in the studio to preview the action for us, Gordon Watson and Angus Loughran are here. Gordon, how excited are you ahead of the clash in Chicago?
Oh, I just can't wait. Just get it on. It's just one of them from start to finish. It's just pure Ryder Cup. The rest of the world just goes pear-shaped. It's just totally golf all the way.
From a betting point of view, Angus, is this the big week for golf? Is it bigger than the Open Championships? Is it bigger than the Masters? How do you see it?
No, I wouldn't say it's bigger than the Masters or the Open Championship, but it's different. It probably generates as much interest.
4 par 5s. The rough's down. So we call it fetch it golf. They hit it as far and as hard as they can, and then they deal with it when they get there.
Angus, we've just got the 3 major winners.
Yeah, 2 of them won in America. Well, 2 of them won US Opens are called. US Open and US PGA. McNally and Kamer, and Paul Lawrie. You've got to go back a long time since he won. But I mean, a lot of them will feel that there's a lot to look at. When you analyse it, the Americans will know that these guys can play, and Luke Donald and Lee Westwood. I don't think that the fact that they haven't won majors actually comes into it, because they'll be good competitors. And Punter in Ryder Cup golf is exceptional, and Sergio, well, I mean, particularly in foursomes, he's got this amazing record in foursomes, nine wins in 10 games. It's unbelievable. So you've got to respect the European players.
Of course, when it comes to the Americans, most of the public will be looking at Tiger Woods and thinking, will he have a good Ryder Cup? But we know in the past he's not performed to his best of abilities when he was world
victory in a foursome. I think in foursomes you'll see that the matches are changing all the time. And yes, it's a tremendous trading opportunity. I'd rather take the free bet rather than trade it to make it, just win straight. So there's still a punting element to it, but without doubt, yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity.
Let's take a look at how Team USA line up and, in fact, their major wins. And as we know, when it comes to the Americans, there are more players that have indeed won a Grand Slam tournament, Flash.
Yeah, and not most of them all in America as well, and not just on there. There's 7 major winners. There's also Matt Kuchar, who won the 5th major this year at the Players, and obviously Brandt Snedeker, who's just won the Tour Championship and $10 million. So, I mean, they are bang on form, and we're going to have to play unbelievably well to get anything out of it.
How significant is it that they've got more major winners than us? Is that a big plus in
especially
the
at home? Yeah, I mean, they've all won in their home country. So for me, especially this week, sometimes when you look at the likes of McDowell, he's won on courses where par is for the course of over 4 rounds. But it won't be like that here. This is a conventional par 7.
The colossal action from the moment starts. What has changed significantly is the outstanding coverage that Sky give it, and the fact that most bookmakers now do bet in running, shot by shot, whereas in the past, they've often closed their books. And what can be a problem is that you don't get much time between the four balls and the foursomes when they change for people to brace up. But certainly from an interest point of view, it's up there with the major championships. No doubt about that.
Yeah, no doubt about that. No doubt about the fact that it's probably one of the best to trade as well, because we've got Europe versus the Americans, and the prices fluctuate all the time, don't they?
Exactly. I mean, if you've got like 2 or 3 boys out there on the course that are in front, people overreact in golf because it's nearly shot for shot. So you can see that if he doesn't birdie the par 5, he loses a shot to the field, normally in an open. But again, that might just be enough to half the hole, and that's what people have got to remember. But there is so much trading available.
I'm going to say, you're a trader, Angus.
I can be, yeah. I mean, certainly, you know, I actually think the foursomes rather than the four balls is more interesting. A victory in a four ball is worth a lot more than a whole victory in a four ball is worth a lot more than a